Services and the Finance Committee. It is Tuesday, November 28th. Thank you all for joining us at this early hour. From the Programs and Services Committee, I see from Ward 2, President Albright. I'm Chair of the committee, Josh Grinsman, Councilor at Large from Ward 4. I see Councilor Bill Humphrey from Ward 5. Vice Chair of the committee, Councilor Brenda Noel from Ward 6. Councilor Lyle Baker from Ward 7. I don't think I see anyone else from the committee at the moment. Councilor Kales?
Oh, we do have Councilor Grossman. But I'll start as she's getting situated. It's still November 28th, and from the Finance Committee, we have Councilor Grossman from Ward 7. I'm David Kalis from Ward 8. We have Councilor Oliver from Ward 1, Councilor Humphrey from Ward 5, Councilor Maliki from Ward 3, Councilor Noel from Ward 6, and Councilor Gentile from Ward 4. And we're also joined by Perry Rosenfield, who is the Manager of Financial Planning, Maureen Lemieux, our CFO, as well as Connor Roach, our Senior Financial Analyst, as well as Commissioner of Parks and Rec, Nicole Banks.
Arts, Art, and Culture.
Director of Arts and Culture. There you go, sir. Thank you. And then within that same group, Louise Perez Demarizzi. Thank you. Anybody else?
I would just mention quickly that we've also been joined from Ward 1 by Councilor Greenberg, member of the Programs and Services Committee.
Great.
I can turn it over to Councilor Grossman. Councilor Grossman, you want to introduce the first item?
Sure, I'm happy to. It's 359-23, the appropriation request for $2.4 million for synthetic turf carpet at Newton North High School's Dickinson Field. And Commissioner Banks, let me turn it over to you to introduce and go over this item, and then we'll come to our joint committees for questions and comments and discussion.
Great. Thank you, Chair Grossman and everyone here tonight. My name is Nicole Banks. I'm the Commissioner of Parks, Recreation, and yes, Culture. I want to thank everyone for making themselves available tonight for the joint meeting. We're here to request funding for the purchase of installation of the replacement turf, carpet, and infill for our synthetic field at Newton North, as well as the reconditioning of the perimeter track at Newton North High School. Presenting tonight with me will be Luis Perez Demarizzi from Parks, Recreation, and Culture. We also have Jonathan Yo, our COO, our consultants from CDM Smith, and I believe both of our athletic directors, Mike Jackson and Pat Gonzalez, are in attendance this evening as well. We would all be happy to answer your questions following the presentation. I would appreciate it if we could get through the presentation and then save questions for the very end. I recognize that there are people in the community, and we have been holding many, many meetings on this, who prefer grass fields to the synthetic fields. And it is a complex topic that we have done much research on over the previous couple of years. An example of the complexities is that a turf field is considered ADA accessible and a grass field is not. So having these at our high school complexes are very helpful, as any of our students with disability or mobility challenges can have their physical education classes, as well as other activities like our graduations, which have been happening outdoors. Participating in the school sports and gym class is very important. It doesn't mean that those who are against the turf are against accessibility, just like the City of Newton is committed to accessibility as well as the environment and sustainability. I really do want to stress that the City of Newton and our Parks and Recreation Department do love our grass fields. We are investing more money into them now than ever before. We are also about to embark on a field improvement project, several field improvement projects at several parks throughout the city. These projects are quite relevant to tonight's discussion, as we started working on the selection of these locations 3 years ago, starting with our design plans. This included working on presenting before the council, various commissions and boards, community meetings, stakeholder group meetings, and eventually going through the funding process. 3 years later, these fields and improvements are designed to the 90% level, and the bids are being prepared. The
Are
fields
slides supposed to
will be
go-
under
moving?
development.
I'm sorry, are the slides supposed to be moving?
No, not yet. Sorry, I'm just going to provide a bit of an introduction
wanted to
before
make
we
sure.
start into the presentation. Thank you. The fields will be under development this coming fall, and that puts us at a timeline of 4 years once we have the grass fields ready to put back onto line from the beginning time that we started the process. Since our first days of discussing this, we have said that the turf fields being resurfaced and lighted are very important, as they will be able to absorb the impacted uses as those grass fields go under development and have time to have a full year to regrow and be ready for play to resume. We have taken extraordinary measures to keep the existing turf fields usable far beyond their anticipated lifespan. The field at North is coming upon 15 years. Like every community with a synthetic turf field, we are looking to do a scheduled replacement. And we are not aware of any communities in our region who are permanently taking their turf fields offline. If we did do that, we would have to cut back on the amount of access that we could provide to our sport leagues and to our school athletics departments. With that said, we are looking to purchase and replace materials this calendar year with our existing contract pricing. And I'm going to turn it over to Luis now to begin our presentation on the details of the replacement.
Thank you, Commissioner Banks. Thank you to both chairs of both programs and services and the finance committees for having us tonight in this brisk November evening. So somehow, there we go. So here to talk about Newton North High School synthetic turf field. But before getting into the nitty gritty, I did want to point us back to our North Star in regards to the athletic fields capital improvements plan. We're here talking about item number 4 on the screen, but this has always been the guiding factor since we began unfolding this plan and rolling it out. As Commissioner Banks noted, there is a clear distinction between synthetic turf and natural turf, and it has a lot to do with playability throughout the year. So this graphic here, which many of you have seen, highlights the extent of the season on synthetic turf as compared to natural turf. Again, noting that we do like our grass fields as well, but do recognize the need for synthetic turf fields for our schools. Some of the additional considerations for grass as we develop these grass fields, not to belabor this or digress, but there is a science between how grass grows, and really the best time for roots to establish is during the fall, dead smack in the middle of when the high impact sports like soccer and football are at play. So again, synthetic turf is critical for our high schools where these sports are pretty significant. And grass field usage, you all have heard this before, is not subject to rain events, has an extended playability season as compared to grass. Grass also does not allow for to safely overlay multiple sports, and converting to turf field minimizes the chaotic impact of weather, compaction, and rescheduling of games due to weather events. Turf also adds space without sprawling. So, this is why, we wanted to answer the question, why are synthetic turf fields so prevalent? Spatial issues, cannot be overused, can handle multiple sport overlays, and really the big piece here is it adds competitive equity between schools and between communities. So with that, I'll hand it over to Commissioner Banks to go over the next few slides.
Thanks, Luis. So with us tonight are two athletic directors, and I'm sure they'd be happy to expand on this or answer any questions. But they have communicated how critical the turf fields are to them in their ability to run our athletic programs. I've also heard from the coaches, specifically the coaches for the multi-purpose sports, football and soccer, other rectangular sport coaches, about the importance of the turf fields. And that these are very important to be able to run the program. Some of the reasons that really any school athletics program would point to is that the number of sports have increased over time. So we do have many more sports being played. Number of teams have increased. So we do have varsity, JV, and freshman sports all needing time on the fields. They're configured to host most all of the rectangular field sports. As Luis showed in the previous slide, they can be overlaid onto the same turf space. We can maximize the number of players during practices. Oftentimes you'll see the schools putting out multiple teams at once, and they can handle that impact and heavy use. We have less travel needs for the students to the fields. So having the fields right on the school campuses, South has the 2 fields, North has the 1 field, minimizes student time and transportation costs and other things involved with transporting students. We do have on-site amenities right at the high schools. Those include lockers, restrooms, showers, changing areas. And we also have our athletic trainers on site from right after school to be able to support and prepare the athletes for play, as well as the on-site parking. The lots have already been built at the high schools, and so there's no need to provide additional parking at these locations. Next slide. The turf field needs for Newton North High School. You can see that we have many teams, as we said, expanded number of teams, number of players, and types of sports being played. I'll just highlight the fall specifically is such a busy time. This is just a look at how many teams the schools are trying to accommodate in their sports systems. And again, many times they're trying to schedule multiple teams on the turf at one time. The turf can handle this extreme use and wear. And in the fall, you can see we have up to 12 teams that will need access and space. If you think about a football team and that high impact use, a turf field can handle the 3 football teams that Newton North has to provide the space for. A grass field would struggle to handle 1 football team for their practices and games. Next slide. Taking a look at comparisons with our neighbors, so the Newton turf availability that we have for our students as compared to several other communities that are close by. Our athletic directors are at a significant disadvantage from their peers who have multiple turf fields to be able to run and put their programs out. And specifically at North, our athletic director has 1 field that he is depending on. So this makes it very important for us to have this field replaced and to be replaced over the summer so that we don't have any downtime for those sports to be back out in the preseason in the fall. Next slide. Here you will see just some recent turf projects and different approaches. On the left, this is a list of communities who have either replaced or added new turf fields in the recent history, so the last 3 to 5 years. On the right-hand side, you will see that these communities have had some restrictions, but all of them do allow turf for their school athletics programs. The only one on here, Sharon, did have a moratorium but that has expired. But they do all have availability for their athletic school programs to be on turf, and are continuing to look at replacement of those turf fields. We did do some research. Sorry, just one more point on that slide. We were not able to find any communities that have converted a turf field back to grass. So that was not something that we could find an example of. Okay, next slide. Making room for the grass fields. I mentioned in my introduction that we do have our grass field projects that will be coming to the construction process very soon. One of the main things when we started discussing this 3 years ago and how to put all of these field projects into order was that it was very important for us to have the fields with the lights completely replaced and ready to go prior to going under construction at these 4 sites, which will be the next projects that we will work on. We do need to have the turf and the expanded time on the turf that the lights have been able to provide to be able to put displaced activity that won't be able to play while the fields are under construction. Next slide. And expansion of field areas with the school projects. I just wanted to point out that we have heard from many people as we have made improvements to our grass fields, that we really want the department to be looking to optimize use of any field space that we do have. This often looks like the grass fields that we have available at our elementary schools. This picture is one example at Mason Rice, but we see things similar at Zervis, at Cabot, where the grass turf is really struggling to handle even the use that happens during recess. I recently met with the Mason Rice principal and a group of PTO parents. They really want to be playing soccer out here during recess, and we're putting a plan in place that they will rotate the goals around because it really can't sustain that kind of high impact use. Our elementary schools don't have the irrigation systems and things that are needed to have a high level of play for athletics. So we end up with conditions like this, which are not optimal, and then kind of hinder what we can offer the kids for recess space.
And I will thank you, Commissioner. And I will also mention that, one exception in using elementary school fields is Burr School Fields. And that is because of its size and its ability to provide 2 regulation size grass fields with ample room for the school to have recess and share those spaces. So some of the cost analysis in maintaining a synthetic turf field is, with the track included, 2 million plus or minus. You're seeing tonight 2.4 ask with engineering and design. But for the turf itself, 1.2 million every 10 years. Other considerations, at least for new turf fields, is that it does change the nature of open space areas. It does create waste, reuse, and recycling, opportunities in that regard. It does need to be resurfaced every 10 years, even with the proper maintenance, which we've begun to do at Newton South with the new fields. In terms of developing more grass fields, it really does take a lot of acreage to be able to spread all these uses, which include potentially tree clearing, which falls into a whole big category here in Newton, since we do care about our trees, land taking, and a whole host of other issues when trying to develop a field. So our goal is really to use the land that we have and find the best way to expand use with the land that we have. Annual maintenance costs, On the left-hand side, you'll see annual maintenance for natural turf as compared to annual maintenance of synthetic turf. Some of these costs do kick in after the 8-year warranty, which is given on turf carpets. Significantly higher, especially when you factor in city water to irrigate these natural grass fields. Other factors, again, irrigation, fertilizer, aeration, or IPM, mowing, adding lime, as well as other waste and other uses on grass fields. Whereas synthetic, it gets used less in the summer, so heat is less of an issue, and it doesn't require watering, and can be reused and recycled. Kind of talking a little bit about grass field maintenance, because as we noted earlier, we do love our grass fields. In 2019, when I started, and then shortly after, when the commissioner started in this department, most of our grass fields had $0 to $3,000 of annual investments. And thanks to the Newton Athletic Fields Foundation, Mayor Fuller, and you all, we've been able to increase that maintenance to a much higher level, which is in many areas elevating these fields to a premier status. We have gotten a few questions about recycling of the old turf, and just wanted to give a highlight on the cost, where the turf in the old infill is being sent to, and generally the recycling procedures. So the turf is going to APW Enterprise in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. There they will separate the infill from the turf carpet, clean the infill, separate the rubber and the sand, bag it for selling for new or other synthetic turf fields, while the carpet is then sent to a facility that converts them into recycled plastic lumber. The average cost of removing and recycling, this is per the Newton South Synthetic Turf Field Project we completed this summer, is $43,000 per field. So overall, roughly $86,000 as part of that project. A brief history of Newton North: it was constructed in 2010. Synthetic turf field needs to be replaced 8 to 10 years. You can extend the lifespan for sure with additional maintenance. We really want to try to avoid that. The rubberized track surfacing also needs resurfacing every 8 to 10 years. And right now the fields are currently at end of life. If my presentation would move, there we go. So here's a few aerials showing the site, and it's a little bit slow. I'm sorry about that. So this is the overview of the site, track resurfacing and replacing the turf. As you can see here, those seams in between the carpet rolls are starting to separate. We've done a lot to kind of keep those seams together. But again, end of life and really do need to go. A slight difference between this turf carpet and the new one that we installed at Newton South is that these rolls, turf rolls, traditionally come in 5-yard segments. The new turf field that we've implemented at Newton South is every 15 yards, so less seams, and the lines are factory tufted. On the right-hand side, you can see the track, decent shape, but has been worn out over the span of 13 years. And so overall, just giving you a brief description of the project scope, we will be removing and reusing the existing rubber infill and sending it to that same facility along with the carpet at Newton North, again, to that very same facility, replaced with better and cleaner turf carpet and infill, which will be the same as Newton South. We will clean the collector drains and resurface the track. And just a few technical points here. We are going with slip film monofilament, so that's the appropriate fibers for multi-purpose fields at a fiber height of 2¼ inch. And again, factory tufted field markings, which provide fewer seams and less propensity of those seams separating. And in terms of the infill, we did a minor modification based on some input we received from athletes and others. At South, we had 80-20 TPE to sand ratio. So this time around, we are reducing the TPE by 5% and increasing sand by 5%, just to kind of bring that level of softness down. And over time, it'll kind of work itself very similarly to South. At the end of the day, we did receive really good input from Newton Girls Soccer, the athletic director at Newton South, about ball roll, bounce, and overall playability of the new fields. And with that, the final note is just a breakdown of the ask. So we are looking at just under $1 million for the track resurfacing and the work to remove and work the subgrade at Newton North. We will be purchasing the turf and infill materials for almost 1.3 million. And then the total design and construction admin for our consultant of 125,000. All that totaling to 2.4 million for the project. In terms of the timeline, we are looking to order the turf and infill at the end of this calendar year, work on construction bid simultaneously and put it out to bid January and into February. We will start right after the athletic season has finished for spring and reopen just in time for the fall 24 athletic preseason. And I did want to highlight the newest member of our team, Sweet Adeline, who is now officially named per a really amazing set of entries from residents across the city when the mayor asked for a naming of the machine. And with that, I will hand it back to the committee for questions.
Thank you very much for the very thorough presentation. We have two hands to start. Councillor Humphrey, followed by Councillor Kalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the staff for the presentation. Obviously, we've been having some discussions quite a few times over this term about the general topic of synthetic turf and some of the specific projects. And I think the presentation tonight was geared toward making a fairly compelling case for the urgency of getting a replacement at Newton North and the equity comparing to Newton South, and why this is at least a better synthetic turf than what is there now, without getting into whether it's better than grass. It's at least, I guess, the argument, as we had heard with Newton South, is that it's better than what's there. That being said, what I didn't hear necessarily tonight was an explanation for why this should be the source of funding for this particular project, the free cash, and why this one is going through the council as opposed to the, I would think, probably much more controversial proposal for a new synthetic turf field at Albemarle. I think it's a little bit hard to separate them from each other, even if we aren't talking about it tonight officially, just because, I mean, we've seen emails and so forth raising the question, why isn't, ARPA paying for this? Why why not just send it through that process? And then if they really want to make the case for doing a new synthetic turf field at Albemarle, which I'm against, then it should go through the full council process and everything. And we can have a real public debate on that. I understand, obviously, that there are trade-offs and cost-benefit problems associated with not using more synthetic turf fields. But, my view for a while here has been that although we needed to urgently replace some existing synthetic turf fields, that's not the same question as should we be adding more. And I think that is a valid question for a public policy debate. So I'm wondering if you can comment on why we're doing this particular project at Newton North this way, because I'm not saying I object to doing it at Newton North. It seems urgent and it seems like an equity issue, but I'm saying why do it this way with this funding source when I don't particularly have any interest in a unilateral expansion of synthetic turf at Albemarle.
Commissioner Banks, are you in a
yeah.
position to answer that? Or Mr. Yo, is that you?
Yeah, Commissioner,
Sorry.
I'll jump
Okay.
in there. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Bill, thank you for the question. We have looked at the 3 existing high school fields as free cash uses for years now. These have been circled on our free cash lists now for, I don't know, Maureen, 3 or 4 years. We've been planning this, and so these fields have always been on our free cash lists for last year and for this year. We actually had hoped to do them the year before, but the amount of money just wasn't there. So, Counselor, these have always been intended to be purchased via and installed via free cash. So, looking at a necessary 4th field or a 2nd field really for Newton North and for the community, that really to us is a separate project and is on a slightly different timeline as well. So we really saw that as a separate thing. And our free cash list of projects, including roads and other major items, is getting quite filled. So we really saw this as a free cash project for a number of years. I don't know, Maureen, if you have anything to add.
Ms. Lemieux?
Thank you, if I may, Madam Chair. As I think all of you, especially those of you who are on finance, we've had this conversation, I would say many times over the years, determining whether or not we're using free cash or in the last couple of years, our ARPA funds or bonding. It's all a matter of, it's partly art, partly science. We look to see what the terms are for different projects. This would be a 10-year bonded project. And so it would significantly impact our operating budget more so than a project that has a 15, 20, or 30-year bond lifetime, if you will. So projects that are closer to the 10-year range, we are much more interested in doing those with free cash. As our COO said, we have been planning for years to do this, as well as the 2 schools at South. So it's partly art, partly science, which funding source we choose. But I do want to make it clear that when this is only this, if we were to bond it, it would only be a 10-year bond. And so it has a greater impact on our operating budget. And that's why something like this, free cash, is really our best choice for it.
Well, thank you. I'm not really suggesting bonding this, but I am saying that, yes, I understand that it was planned for several years or some years back that this would presumably come out of free cash, but I'm saying, then ARPA did become available as an option. I think it's worth, looking at these. I'm sure you did look at it, but I I feel, and I'm guessing I'm not alone in feeling like if we vote to approve this item out of free cash, that is also greenlighting you to go ahead with the ARPA money for the Albemarle project. Whereas if we vote no on this, you're going to have to use the ARPA money to do this project, which you're going to do anyway. And I mean, you may disagree with that. I'm not necessarily asking you to comment on that publicly. I'm just sort of mentioning it for the benefit of my colleagues and the public. But I don't want additional new fields, and I understand the fiscal rationale for additional new synthetic turf fields, so I don't need that re-explained. That's not my point. Sometimes you have to make some tough decisions in the community with the fiscal resources you have available, and sometimes those decisions are not just which is less expensive and which is more expensive. Sometimes it's also about the environmental factors, the health factors, things like that. And to my mind, there was an override proposal for additional funding for athletic fields that didn't pass. I haven't heard in quite a while, despite all the debate we've been having, I haven't heard in quite a while from the advocates for the synthetic turf fields saying, yes, we need loads more synthetic turf fields. They sort of disappeared off my radar. Maybe you hear from them more than I do, but I'm just pointing this out. And this may be one of these situations where we just don't have enough money to do the level of field capacity in this city that we would like, and taking a shortcut and saying, well, we're going to do these synthetic turf fields and add more and more of them is a problem in my view. I don't think it's the solution we should be going for. And I understand the case for this specific project, and I think you can make that argument, but not in isolation from everything else. And I don't think we should be expanding them beyond this. Thank you.
Okay, I see Commissioner Banks has her hand up, so I want to recognize her, and then I'm going to go on to Councillor Kalis. Just a quick time check for everybody. We've got a lot of discussion ahead of us, but we're already at 6:40. This meeting has, as my understanding, a pretty hard stop at 8 o'clock for this item and the next item. So I just want everybody to keep that in mind as we move along. Commissioner?
Thank you, Chair Grossman. I did just want to make sure that everyone's aware, and these projects, the CPC request for Albemarle has come through this committee. So I know that you've heard much of this, but we do have a need for both projects. The Albemarle redevelopment, all of the designs and plans that were approved do include the synthetic turf field being added to the Craft Street end of that project design. We do have the ARPA funds that are designated for that project, and those funds were needed to be listed in our application for the CPC funding so that we had a very specific separate funding source for that project. So those funds are needed and designated for that project at this point.
Councillor Kalis.
Thank you, Chair Grossman. Commissioner Banks, well, first of all, thanks for the presentation. It was great. I appreciated what Councillor Humphrey just walked through. And I have hesitations about the proliferation of synthetic fields. Did you say that your plan, I'm just looking for more clarification on your plan for fields. Is it that you want more synthetic near the schools so they can take advantage of them? And is the Albemarle one the second field that you're considering for Newton North?
Yes, that's correct. So it was very important to have the high school complexes be able to maintain the turf fields. So for South, that is 2 at the high school complex. For North, that is 1. Because the high school complexes at North is more constrained for space, we don't have the size that's necessary to have the second synthetic field right on site. And so we looked at multiple different sites to add a second field that would serve the Newton North High School. And the best outcome was Albemarle. It is fairly close to the high school, and it does, as a recreation complex, it does have a lot of the services that we could provide, such as restroom facilities and water access. So those were important reasons why Albemarle was selected for the second site for Newton North High School.
Okay, and are you planning for more synthetic beyond those 4?
We don't have any current plans. We have heard from youth sport groups that there is more of a need. So, I do want to recognize that the youth sports programs are seeing the same type of things that our high schools and middle schools are, that there is more participants interested in playing, more types of sports that are being played. And so, for example, we have a youth football program that would like to have access, and having access to synthetic turf would be very, very important. They have expressed interest in having an additional field, but there are no current plans. It's not part of the current proposals. And funding would have to be considered as part of that as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
Commissioner, if I could just add on to that. We want to maximize, if we do add the fourth field, we want to maximize the use, certainly with the use of the new lights. So I don't know, Athletic Director Mike Jackson is here. I don't know, Mike, if you have any quick thoughts on both the replacement of your existing field as well as the fourth field. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Can you hear me?
Yes,
We
we can.
can.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm in the car, so I just wanted to make sure you could hear me. I appreciate having the time, Commissioner Banks and Luis and committee. So at Newton North currently, we are really struggling with one turf field, and the turf field, obviously, it sounds like there's a decent amount of support in resurfacing the field. We have a permanent puddle in the field right now. And Luis was able to show some of the seam issues that we've tried to address. The fall season is incredibly hard with 2 soccer teams, a field hockey team who essentially has to play on turf, like the sport is a turf sport, and then 3 football teams as well. Any inclement weather creates a significant amount of problems for our soccer teams that have to play more than half of their games on grass right now. We went up right up until the cutoff date to play soccer this year because we had such bad weather this fall. And we ended up playing 4 games in about 7 days because we had to try to get every game in before the cutoff date. Just so you know, as a group, the comparable schools in our league have a minimum of 2 turf fields. We are operating as one of the largest athletic departments in the state and the second largest in our league with 1 turf field. The Albemarle second turf field, if we're able to get to that point, would be an incredible help for us to be able to manage having all of our fields, all of our teams be able to get games in on a regular basis. I mean, we're looking at almost 20 teams from different times in the fall and then several teams in the spring that would like to use turf, that it doesn't always work just because we only have the 1 turf field. To be really frank and honest, like we are really operating at a disadvantage in Newton right now. With the later dismissal, it cuts the amount of time that we actually have on fields, and we're trying to share them with youth sports. And the youth sports, I'm in such support of because they are the future of our high school. And so I would love to give the youth sports as much time as we can give, but it doesn't work just because of when we get out and the amount of time that we have to try to get our practices in. So just so you know, from my perspective and what I deal with on a regular basis, the juggling act of trying to actually operate with 1 turf field has been next to impossible. Like the last 2 years, we have been in a really, really bad situation with 1 turf field that has not been in great shape. So my plea to everybody here is, the explosion of sports. We have 36 sports at the high school right now, and the explosion of sports around Newton requires us to be able to have more synthetic fields. The amount of lining, and I'll leave it at this because I don't want to talk too much, but we have to line those fields for football, field hockey, soccer, lacrosse every year, and that just is not able to happen on grass. The city doesn't have the manpower to be able to line different sports on a regular basis. So having synthetic fields is the only way that we really can function at a level that we should be in Newton.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Jackson.
Yeah. May I add
Um,
something
I just
to that?
wanted,
Yeah.
I've
Hold
got
on,
enough
Mr.
on that.
Prester Mercy, hold on one second. Counselor Kales, why don't you go, and then I'm
Yeah, I
gonna
have
come
enough
back
on
to.
that. I don't need all the additional background. The most important question I had actually was beyond what I've already asked is, Ms. Banks, do you have, what is the medical, opinion of the PFAS and toxins that are found in these carpets? And how do you and other cities and towns kind of rationalize? I mean, I understand the need, but is the issue as great as I've read about in your mind? And just do you have any medical support for why for it not being as bad as they say?
Thank you, Councillor Kalis, for the question. We do have our experts from CDM Smith here tonight, and it would be good to allow them to give some information on the PFAS. We did have this discussion with the community. We understand the concerns, and we were able to do some investigation as we went into the Southfield replacements. So we do have information that we can share if you would like to do that at this time.
That would be great.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm going to hand it over to Heather. Are you taking this question?
I am, yes. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the question. We took concerns about PFAS very, very seriously. And we did our due diligence and in accordance with the order of conditions from the Conservation Committee to better understand the potential presence or absence of PFAS in these materials. So in order to address this, this question and concern, we utilized 3 of the most robust analytical methods that we can currently use. And we have prepared a report that will be made public that summarizes the results of this testing. There's a lot of nuance, so I'm going to do my very best to keep this, as high level and brief as I possibly can. But in summary, there were very inconsistent and very, very low level detections of 6 analytes that occurred in only 1 or 2 samples. And this primarily occurred following the analytical method that we used that was conducted at extreme conditions, not environmentally relevant, high heat, high alkalinity, and with an added oxidant to really drive the chemical reactions. And so, despite these very low levels that we observed, we really did not see any results that suggest that there's intentionally added or significant presence of known or unknown PFAS in the materials that could adversely affect the environment or human health. Most of the detections that we saw were estimated concentrations from the analytical laboratory, which means that they were so low, they couldn't actually be measured with confidence. They're basically as close as you can get to non-detect without actually being non-detect. So, again, we really just want to reiterate how seriously we took this concern and the fact that we are not seeing PFAS present at concentrations that we would expect to result in any harm or, to human health or the environment.
Councilor
Thank you.
Kalis?
Thank you. I'll let somebody else continue.
Okay, I just wanted to check in, Mr. Perez de Mauricia. I know you were waiting patiently to add before. I don't know if you feel we've covered what you wanted to say. You're good.
I think it was
Okay.
covered. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And members of the administrative team, I'm constantly looking for your hands. So if you put them up, I will see that you want to add something, and it just is easier for me to keep track if we do it that way. Thank you.
Chair
Councilor
Grossman,
Maliki.
can I also just add for the PFAS discussion, the the scientific studies and the study and the results will be posted. But we did also include Linda Walsh in the review. And she also did not have any health concerns. So I think that's just important to have our local health department involved in that review as well.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Maliki, then Counselor Kelly.
Oh my gosh, so much to say. One comment on the previous speaker from CDM Smith, which I believe is in the business of consulting to install artificial turf fields. So I'm kind of impressed that she seems to have admitted that there were low concentrations of PFAS found in certain circumstances. And I'd just like to remind people that actual medical experts say there is no safe level of PFAS. But let me get back to the Councilor Humphrey, and I thank him for his comments. I mean, let's be honest. The reason the administration is using ARPA for Albemarle and free cash for North is that during the discussion on Newton South, some councilors said, yeah, I'm going to vote for replacing old turf here, but I might feel differently if it were a new field. And that was, I believe, February, March. The CPC committee expressed big reservations about artificial turf at Albemarle when they approved the rest of the project. And, you know, boom, in May, the mayor announced in her budget speech that she was designating 2.2 million of ARPA money for artificial turf at Albemarle, totally circumventing any opportunity for the city council to debate the issue of whether we wanted to add artificial turf in, you know, basically the Charles River watershed. So if, you know, we switch funding, we can switch funding sources at any time. If, you know, if that is not the intent, switch them back. Let's have ARPA for this and go back to the city council for actual debate and approval on turf at Albemarle. But I'd like to get back to some questions I sent Mr. Perez de Marizi. It was, you know, presented again tonight that, you know, this stuff, the Southfield is being recycled down at, what is it, 181 South Kime Street in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. If I go down there, am I going to see rolls of turf going in one end and clean fill and shredded grass coming out the other end into some product that is actually marketable, or is that yet to happen?
Portions of the fields are being processed for that recycling. So there's a bit of a queue. If that answers your question, I haven't been down there, so I can't say what you'll see per se, but just got a report from that facility today that they have started processing portions of our field.
Has anyone actually seen it? Any independent third party seen it?
And can I just add that requirement of the South project was for the installer to provide the city with a bill of lading, and we did receive that. So, you know, we have that and we have made that available, which does state that it is going to the facility where it is going to be recycled. So that's the information that we have to go on of, you know, the truck came and they gave us that slip with that address as where they were taking it. So that was part of the project scope, was required by us, and we do have that paperwork.
Are they using the technology of this Italian company?
We weren't sending turf to Italy or trying to
Not saying you
look
did.
at. No, I understand. I guess what I'm saying is we're sending it to the most local facility. I'm not totally privy on the process that they're using.
By bills of
If that
lading,
matches.
by bills of lading, are you referring to that letter from Mr. Waterman that said chain of custody?
Yeah, that's what bill of lading is, a chain of custody. Yes.
My understanding of bills of lading, and I looked it up, it's something, it's a federal government document that seems to be a lot more rigorous, say, than a letter that claims to be a chain of custody.
Well, there's the letter from Mr. Waterman at APW stating that they received the 15 truckloads for one field, roughly the same for the other. the bill of lading is a different document, and we will share that. We just got the second bill of lading very recently.
Okay, thank you for that. My other question had to do, because, you know, we are the Finance Committee, we ought to be thinking long-term about the financial implications of this. And, you know, as been noted in the memo from Sustainable Materials Management, and others of us have mentioned it, we don't know in 10 years if you could replace an artificial turf field with another artificial turf field if the state law changes. So we ought to be thinking about disposal costs and how we would be getting rid of something that might be the, you know, asbestos shingles of the future. So I would like to see a different approach to putting this out for bid at the very least. We had one big giant number for the Newton South project. It was impossible to tell what we were paying for the new turf, what we were paying for the disposal of the old turf, what portion was the track itself. Will you commit to soliciting separate bids for the different components of the project so that we can judge different companies who might want to bid on one part but not the other, and so that we can unbundle what the actual cost of getting rid of old turf is? And also, can you get a quote on, a sincere quote, what would be the cost of a natural grass alternative?
Thank you for that, Councillor Maliki. I will just highlight that bids of this sort are very typical to be a lump sum. Now, once the project gets underway, we have what's called the schedule of values, which we have for each project that we've conducted in this fashion, and that does break down all the components. We work very closely with the contractor, and they break down each component. So, for example, Newton South turf, so it sort of looks like this, which is a breakdown, and we can share this with you. So the turf removal and recycling, $85,845. We asked them specifically to break it out in that way, understanding that folks will want to be interested in that. In terms of putting out a separate bid for grass or an alternate, if you will, that requires a lot of technical investigation, and many years we have to investigate the drainage system and how that could be retrofitted for grass. So it's not as simple as adding a few lines to a spec, if you will. But I do understand your note about the next time around. I think if legislature were to pass, you know, banning statewide turf, we would certainly need to find ways to address that.
Well, I raised the concern about, you know, what happens in 10 years, a year ago when we were discussing the South Field, so it shouldn't actually be a surprise. The difference between getting the breakdown in the bidding process versus getting the number after the fact from the, in this case, only sole bidder, is that the first is verifiable, the second isn't. It's kind of like if you go in to, you know, buy a new car and the guy tells you, well, this is the price and this is what I'll pay for your old car that you're turning in. You don't really know what you're really getting. You've got to break it up to know for sure what the new car is costing you and what they're paying you for the trade-in. So that's why I think it's important to get it up front, and also invite bids from companies that might not be interested or capable or wanting to do the whole project. I mean, with South, you only got the one bid after all that.
We did.
Mr. President DiMarizzi, sorry, Councillor Maliki, I just
Okay,
wanted, when you're done, I wanted to let him, well, I just wanted to let him answer, and also Mr. Yo just had his hand up, so I just wanted to let them have the opportunity to give you information.
Okay.
Sure. So again, I just want to highlight, you know, the bidding process is as accurate as the bids that come in. You know, to your point, Councillor Maliki. That said, you know, the schedule of values is a confirmed number as the contractors break up the pieces of the project. And that's why we have consultants also checking that. And we develop budgets prior to. So there's a lot of ways to verify. So there are times, for example, and I'll be brief, Newton North Court resurfacing. We received a few bids. We developed a budget and we did receive the lowest bidder at 60K or 70K perhaps, if I recall correctly. And we discarded that one because we knew that wasn't the call project. So we do rely on the support of our consultants in reviewing that as well as internally the city. So that's my thoughts on that, and certainly leave it up to others if they want to add.
Mr. Yo and Commissioner Banks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, Councilor Maliki, thank you for your perspective. We definitely will not be adding in possibility for a bid on grass. As you heard from the athletic director, it's not remotely feasible for us to use grass. I walk around that field and track almost 4 or 5 times a week and see the massive amount of use. There's no way that grass could withstand that use. We would need 3 or 4 fields right around the high school to make up for it. So we would have to take homes and whatnot. It's not remotely feasible for that to work at the high school. And lastly, I'll just say CDM Smith has been an expert in drinking water testing as well for over 40 years. I've been working with them. So your statement about them and their association with an industry is just really not accurate. So I have to stick up for CDM Smith. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Banks.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to highlight that with the competitive bid process, we always want to have as many bids as we can. We work very closely with our consultant, CDM Smith, and with our procurement office to make sure that we have, many companies that we can invite to bid on our projects. And we, have done that for South, and we'll do that for North. I do want to point out that the Newton South project was pretty complex. Having both fields needing to be replaced and a track resurfacing in one summer was a very large scope job that did require a company who could take on all of that workload. We also had a shorter time frame for that project. We were going out to bid a couple of months behind this project. So we're about 2.5 months in advance in requesting the funds for this project, and the Newton North project will have 1 field replacement and track resurfacing. So we're very hopeful that we will get additional competitive bids, and we'll work very hard to get that information out to as many companies as we can.
Thank you. Councilor Maliki, are you all set for now?
Just like to reiterate the question, why not do this with free cash and leave, or do this with ARPA and let the city council debate Albemarle instead of short-circuiting that opportunity to debate.
Mr. Yo or Commissioner Banks, do you have anything further to say on that topic?
No, I mean, this has always been on our free cash list. So Maureen.
And
we
I
did
would
scout
just say
the same
quickly,
with free cash.
if I may, Madam
Lemay.
Chair, what I would say is, at this point in the term, we would not have time to change it. That would be, I believe, a substantive enough change that we would not be able to do that. We need to get this approved if we're moving forward. The goal is to be able to sign a contract and to engage whoever the successful bidder is prior to December 31st so that we can have the new turf field online in time for the sports. So at this point, I don't think we would not be looking to change our ask.
Okay, I'm going to go on to Councilor Kelly, then President Albright.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I'm very aware that we're after 7 o'clock and we've got a lot to do tonight. I'm going to try and simplify what I have to say, because as we're hearing, it's a complicated issue. I very much appreciate the initial presentation, particularly by Luis Perez de Maurizi. However, it felt very skewed in one direction to me. It was about, and I also appreciated hearing from the athletic director, Mike Jackson. It was very much about field availability. For me, it boils down to this. Is it availability or is it safety and health of our children, our athletes, and our residents? That's what it comes down to. It doesn't matter to me whether it's free cash or bonding. The funding source doesn't matter. I don't think we should be installing synthetic turf on our public lands, our public fields in Newton. I think it's unhealthy. And we've heard from one source tonight, could be disputed, Heather Lanza and CDM Smith, or we can listen to the Sustainable Materials Group. And each of them provides many other disputing sources for the health and safety aspects. I believe it is unsafe for us to do this. As a parent of 3 kids who played baseball, softball, lacrosse, and soccer, all on Newton fields, I hear the need for more fields, more access. But I think the greater good here is about how do we protect the health and safety of the youth and the athletes and the human beings and the pets who are on these fields. So I would urge us not to support this. And I'm going to cut it there because I know we've got a lot to talk about tonight and a lot of other people, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, President Albright, then Councillor Leary.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The first thing I want to say is that I would never spend ARPA money on fields. It was meant to help people who were suffering from the pandemic, and it would never be my choice to spend ARPA money on fields, any fields. So that's just my I don't get to say about that, but I'm going to say it just tonight. I'm very concerned about questioning the professional integrity of this consultant who has a name in the field, and I hope they will stand by their professional integrity and their scientific research. I count on it. I think they wouldn't have been picked unless they were a reputable company. So I'm concerned that we're even questioning their scientific research. With respect to health and safety of kids, as I understand it, the level of PFAS is negligible. I believe that was the word. I may be wrong on that, but it's essentially that. And it's more important that kids, it's also very important, let's put it that way, that kids have access to team sports and health, the health given to them mentally and physically by having access to team sports, which we would be denigrating if we do not have this turf field. And to move this along, I'm going to move approval in programs and services. And I would call the question, but I see my colleague, Councillor Leary, has something, and Councillor, I guess, Oliver has something to say as well. So I won't call the question now, but I will soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Banks, I see you just took your hand down. Ms. Lanza, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
I would just like to thank Councillor Albright for that. And yes, just kind of set the record straight that I am not a consultant on behalf of the manufacturers. I am using, or assessing these results using the current state of the science and, with the intent to be protective of this community. So thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate your willingness to contribute to the discussion tonight. Councillor Leary, then Oliver. Oh, I'm sorry, President Albright, I saw your hand just went up. Did you have a follow-on comment?
After Councillor Oliver.
After. Okay, Councillor Leary, then Oliver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief as well. I worked for the last several years with Mr. Traxler and Advocates for Fields, and I came to have a deep appreciation of the real necessity for us to invest and improve our fields and our capacity. And through that, I have come to the conclusion that I'm not prepared to say that we don't have the resources or funds to offer excellent playing fields for our residents of Newton, which they desperately need and we have been underfunding them the last several years. We're finally getting on track with that, and I'm very appreciative of the administration for that. I know that the checks and, we have to weigh things here, and it's not the easiest question, but for me, it has become clear that we need these turf fields. We're replacing them, and the newer fields are better, there's less issues with health and wellness with the newer fields than the old ones the kids have been playing on for the last 14 years, including my 2 children. So I'm just gonna say that I think it's very appropriate tonight that we do appropriate the 2.4 million from the free cash for the Newton North High School field. It also is an equity issue. I had just a couple of quick questions, but I also just want to say with President Albright's comments that I think it's always okay to question scientific reason or where they come from. That's okay with me. I didn't take that as impugning this consultant at all. I think they're used to these kind of tough questions. One thing I wanted to ask about, has the city actually done any work to identify locations that show the possibility of creating new grass fields? Has that been gone up and down? And my other question is, I think with the irrigation, don't we use well water rather than MWRA water, which would be much less cost to the city? And then I'm going to leave it. I have other questions, but I will leave it at that.
Commissioner, do you want to answer that?
I can respond as well.
Sure, go ahead.
Commissioner. Councilor Leary, yes, part of the larger athletic fields capital plan does look at grass fields quite a bit. In fact, a large portion of Albemarle is grass field development. Burr School, we're expanding grass fields there. We are also doing a lot of IPM and investing more money into our existing grass fields, which also add use to it. So yes, we are constantly looking at opportunities for new grass fields. At this point, we're working with what we have, seeing how that looks like once it's all done in terms of permitting and use, to then look at other opportunities and continue the cycle. And then if you wouldn't mind repeating the second question.
Do you use well water for irrigation?
Yes. So we do use well water quite a bit, and we are looking to go toward well water in most of our fields, but we do have, specifically Newton North, we do have some on city water. So not all of them are on well.
Thank you. I look forward to supporting this item when it comes before the full council.
Councillor Oliver and then President Albright.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. I think most of the folks on this call know where I stand on fields. I was one of the founders, along with Mr. Traxler, of NAF and AFF, trying to or advocating for higher quality grass and turf fields in Newton to support our youth athletics, including our high school athletes and athletes as old as some of the folks on the phone call here. I think really, for me, what this boils down to is the trade-offs that we're talking about here in terms of cost, in terms of potential, although negligible perhaps, PFAS concentrations detected with these types of products. I don't want to get into a big debate on PFAS. I think that would distract us from the motion at hand here. I'll be supporting this item. I think this is a worthwhile undertaking for the city of Newton. Again, I think that the homework that's been done here all points to this being a smart decision. looking forward to supporting the project as this goes forward. Thank you.
President Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I said, I'm willing to call the question. Oh, now I see Councillor Krinsman would like to have a word. But I perhaps after Councillor Krinsman, we can vote on this item.
I think he's just ready to respond to your calling the question in your committee.
Okay.
Let me hand it over to you, Chair Krinsman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't see any other comments, at least in programs and services. So I'll add my 2 cents. I will say that I agree wholeheartedly with the comments of Councilors Leary and Oliver. I think with the 2 of them, I've also been working very hard to try and get our fields the resources that they need, so that we have the resources for our kids and our residents. Mr. Yo and Commissioner Banks, I think, have been partners in that endeavor. We've seen a lot of improvement in the recent years of the resources devoted to the fields and maintenance budget. So I am pleased, and after all that work and the research that we did and the investigations that we took about the needs of the city, I also, like my colleagues, became convinced that turf fields were a necessary component of that, so that our residents have the resources they need. So I agree. I'll be supporting this item as well. Seeing no other comments in programs and services, Councilor Kalis, I know your hand is up, but I can leave that for finance if that's okay with you. Okay. Excuse me. The motion is for approval. Any other discussion on that motion in programs and services? Okay. We'll try it on a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. I heard 6. I see we've been joined by Councilor Ryan and Councilor Baker. Any opposition?
I'm
No.
abstaining.
And 1 abstention. Okay, so I have Councilor Wright as a no and Councilor Humphrey as an abstention. Is that right? Okay, passes programs and services. Thank you. Over to you, Councilor Grossman.
Thank you, Councilor Kalis.
I'd like to move approval as well. I did find the whole presentation very informative, and I actually like the strategy that Commissioner Banks kind of outlined, which is, and I think we all should think about this, which is where there's high usage, you have the synthetic fields. It's right at those schools, or with the Albemarle situation being closer to the schools, so it would get high use. But without it doesn't look like there's a plan for additional synthetic, which is something that appeals to me. So I like the plan, and I think we should approve this.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve in finance. I will just quickly add my own comments. I agree with President Albright, Councilors Leary, Oliver, and others. President Albright, you made the point that was on the tip of my tongue about the health and wellness of access to athletics and sports, and that's very important to me. I think the only point I would disagree with is I personally feel fine about spending ARPA money on fields, and I think in part it's maybe out of memories of how many athletic seasons my kids missed during COVID while we were not having sports and unsure about what the ramifications of COVID and team sports would be, and sports seasons that went on after the fact where they were all masked. And I just see our outdoor spaces and access to the outdoor spaces, both in light of that, as well as in how heavily we relied on having those spaces when we did discover that we could be outside safely, as kind of key to getting through that time and the spread of the virus and all that. So I just feel a little differently about that. However, I'm very supportive of this for all the reasons that were already stated. Do we have any other discussion in finance? Okay, seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Any abstention? Okay, 1 opposed, abstentions?
Abstention.
Okay, so we have Councillor Malachy opposed, Councillor Humphrey abstaining, and then I think that leaves us 4 in favor. That takes care of that item this evening. So I want to thank everybody who was here to participate in that. I'm going to waste no time and move right on to our next item, which is 155-23, subparens 2, to a request to appropriate $50,000 to a Parks, Recreation, and Culture account and this is with respect to the Heartbreak Hill banner. Commissioner Banks, may I turn this back over to you?
Thank you. You may, and I'm going to try to share my screen, which I might be the worst at doing. So I hope it works. Give me one moment.
Working.
Okay. Great. I think I can make it larger. Okay, can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I will be pretty brief. I have just 6 slides here for a presentation. I don't remember when I was here previously, maybe about 6 months ago, and we discussed our proposal. Parks, Recreation, and Culture houses our Arts and Cultural Development Office. And part of what we do and our mission is to try to bring the community together. We host events, we put things out for arts and culture. And one of the projects that we have been working on is the marathon banner, which is really a celebration for the runners. You can see here on the cover slide, I actually took these off of social media. Hope that's allowed. But these are people's actual photos. There was also videos that the runners were sharing where, you know, they get to the top of Heartbreak Hill and would just sort of rejoice in that celebratory moment. And this was a way for our community to come together to support them and to be able to really honor the iconic space that is Heartbreak Hill and what the race coming through Newton means to us. So really great project. For the past couple of years, we have been putting it up with our forestry division using our bucket trucks. So the proposal that we've brought forward is to utilize a portion of the marathon funds that come in from the BAA and to put in some permanent poles that could be utilized for the placement of the banner. And we have done some research following the meeting previously. There was some questions, a few more details that were sought from the committee. And so I've been working with our Department of DPW to bring forward some additional information. So here we just have what the engineers have put together of what the poles would need to be in place to be able to sustain the weight and height of the banner. The 2 poles that would be placed would allow for the street banner. As you just saw in the previous slides, those banners can be double-sided, so you can see it coming and going from either side of the street. And then you'll also notice that you can have the side banners, which are the small banners on either of the poles. Those are similar to the Create Newton program that we have out right now. Those street banners were donated by Newton Community Pride and are part of one of our public art installations. So you have options to utilize the poles in different ways throughout the year. This slide just highlights the location. So as you're coming up Heartbreak Hill, we had previously been posting close to the section of Hammond Street. The location with the 2 red poles is an area where we have electricity currently available. So there's no need to trench under the street. What would happen is on the side where we have the abutting neighbors, the pole would be replaced. Let me just click to the next one so you can see the streetscape here. So there is a current pole that is one of the older style stone poles with a light that would be replaced with the new style pole that you see here. And then on the interior side of the street, we would have a new pole added that would tie into electricity from an existing pole that is already on that interior section. So this location was really the only option that we had that current electric service and works well with basically upgrading one of the poles. Do you want me to finish the presentation, Chair Grossman, and then take questions? Or
Yes, I think that would be great.
Just 2 more slides. We do have one of the new poles that people can take a look at. at Com Ave and Beaumont. It is a black aluminum pole. It does have a light fixture. The light fixture is LED. And again, it does have the brackets for the street banners, the small banners that would hang, as well as having the weight load capacity to handle the across the street full-size banner. One of the follow-up questions from our meeting last time was just looking at the banner use. And again, we would definitely want the bracket banners to be incorporated into our public art initiative. We have the Create Newton one going on currently, but there could be future initiatives as well. And the cross street banner, we would be looking at having, working to have several banners throughout the year, all for city messaging only. So something that is a city event, not necessarily being hosted on city land, but actually an event or activity that the city, one of our city departments is working on. Having 6 weeks maximum per banner posting would fit what our idea would be here for the initiative. And I think that does coincide with what the city council has in place for their recommendations on the banners. As I mentioned earlier, we're working really closely with DPW on this, so we would continue to collaborate with them. Things that could be on the banners: holidays, events, celebrating culture, arts, and community. For example, it could be the 4th of July has a banner, something like that. And again, the messaging can be printed on the front and back, so we do have an opportunity to have it be visible from both sides of the street. And happy to take any questions.
So Commissioner Banks, you could potentially, for these 6 weeks per banner posting in the front and back for the, holidays, events, 4th of July, whatever, that would be specifically still the cross street banner and not just the side banners.
Yes, for the cross street banner. So I think for, typical use, having a banner up for, maybe a week leading up to an event would be something that we were looking at. Specifically with the marathon banner, we would like to have it out for a little bit longer of a period because we do have a lot of runners that are training. It's just a great opportunity for them to kind of get excited, celebrate, and post all those social media pictures that we love seeing.
Can you just put up the slide 2 before this that shows where the polls would go?
Yes.
Just wanted to look at that for another second. Okay, we've got a couple of hands, so let me go right to them and then we'll come back to you with any additional information you want to provide. Councillor Baker, then President Albright.
Thank you, Councilor Grossman, and thank you, Commissioner, for responding to some of my questions in part of your presentation. Several of us may remember that I raised some questions about how this is going to work, and the site is, if any of you have gone to see it, there's the commissioner had indicated there's a ribbon around the existing pole, and the property at 360 Commonwealth is the one that's on the right going up the hill that is most affected by this. And I did go by on Sunday to just ask if the owners knew about the proposal, and they didn't. So I sent a copy of the commissioner's slide that you see on the screen now to them, and also forwarded a copy of my note to her today imposing the banner policy that the council adopted a number of years ago. But I think what she has proposed is consistent with the policy. Just to check on scenic roads, Commonwealth Avenue is not a designated scenic road. Hammond Street and Hobart Road are, but this is occurring at a point which is not part of the scenic road system. So I think that as long as this is something which I assume the DPW crews would install, it's not going to be like a flagpole. This is really brackets with holding the sign up for the period of time, and it's there for a limited period within the policy that asked to be distributed to members of the committee, some of whom were not on the council at the time we adopted it. So my questions have been answered, and unless there's concern from the abutters, which I haven't heard, or there are concerns from other people, I'd be prepared to support this.
President Albright, then Councillor Greenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you won me over. I also had a number of concerns, but it's funny because just today I noticed the new black light pole at Beaumont. I don't know if it's always been there or it just went in. But anyway, I noticed it today and it actually looked quite attractive. And they would still both be light poles. Am I right about that?
Yes, they would both have the light available.
Yeah, so I think I didn't like the fact that you were going to have just 2 poles with no other purpose going up, but the fact that they're both light poles, that they're attractive. I love the fact that you'd populate them with city events. I love the fact that you'd have them for holiday events. I love the messaging on both sides, so I'm 100% there. And I'm happy to move approval on this in programs and services.
Councillor Greenberg, then Gentile.
Oh, thank you. Yes, this is a wonderful and creative solution to our last meeting. I think the improvements of these 2 poles, that light is such an improvement than just the 2 bare poles that was originally proposed. And replacing that old street light is an added bonus. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Gentile, then Noel.
Does anyone know how far it is from this pole to basically to the end of the Newton houses on Com Ave? You know, to where BC takes over?
Oh, it's quite a ways.
Well,
This is sort of between Hobart going up towards Hammond Street at the top. This is, I think it's opposite Knobscot, roughly.
Yeah.
So my sense is that it's not very far from the you know, Newton line. So I mean, I don't think that it's a bad idea. I guess it's kind of a nice idea, but there's a lot of nice ideas and no one seems to be concerned about spending $50,000. I could think of a lot of other projects that would be just as nice for $50,000. So I guess I'm not overwhelmed by it, and I'll save my my comments for the full council.
Councillor Noel.
I find myself in alignment with Councillor Gentile. I can't get past the $50,000 with the year that we've had, with the programs that we've cut. You know, I keep beating the understanding our differences drum, which was cut for $64,000. So I can't vote for this year.
So Chair Grossman, I don't know if I can just add to that. I just, you know, would like to highlight, you know, I think the important work that our arts and culture department does do. They get so many things done, special events throughout the city, hosting events, public art initiatives, things that we try to offer to the community for free, so that they can have these experiences and, you know, really feel embraced and part of the community. That department doesn't have the budget to, you know, be able to do special projects like this. So we do, you know, try to ask for additional funds where we can for something specific like this, which has been an initiative that we've been doing for 2 years now, and has been really well embraced. The location of the pole is about 3 houses away from the intersection with Hammond, which is where we have been placing the pole, which is, I guess, kind of, you know, the top of Heartbreak Hill. It is a nice entrance point. I mean, we kind of see this as both directions for the traffic. Just a really nice place to be able to highlight some of the special events and activities that we do. Put a lot of work and heart into providing those for the community. For many of our special events, we have great sponsors, businesses within the community, organizations within the community, who help us be able to provide those events at no cost to people who want to come in and enjoy them. So it's just another way for us to really highlight that work.
Councillor Gentile, then Baker.
So I hear what you say about the programs that this organization offers. I would prefer that you take the $50,000 and give it to them so they can offer more programs that people can take advantage of as opposed to spending it on, a banner. I think it would be money better spent to, I'm not saying that they don't do good work. They do good work, and they can use money, give them money so that they can expand their program offerings. Better than, to me, that would make more sense than, a banner. Anyway.
Counselor Baker, then Humphrey.
So I just want to mention that as I understand it, this is to enable something that's already going on to go on in a better way. It's not so the installation is really a capital investment for the future. I don't know what the cost of obviously bringing our teams out and the bucket trucks and all of that, but assume they'll be out temporarily to put up these devices going into battery. But I hope that the operating cost, in fact, might be lower. Am I incorrect, Commissioner, that the cost of the banner itself would be funded out of the marathon funds? So we're not talking about operating expenses in addition.
That's correct. And the banner costs are quite low. And we've been reusing the same banner. We may make a new banner to make it double-sided. That was sort of a new thought once we had the permanent location, because it can be up for a longer period of time. But I want to say the banner that's there now was just over $100 to have made for really a nice size piece.
Well, if you've got somebody reimbursing, I would just encourage you to look at some issues like just how they're designed, and noise. Noise is probably not a big issue, but just in terms of wear and tear. If this is going to be the gateway to the city, you want it to look as good as you can. So I hope that you might think about how to do that, make the banners worthy of the site.
I have to admit, it's Paula Gannon who will make it look beautiful. So she has a great eye.
Okay, Counselor Humphrey, then Noel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question going off something Counselor Baker had just said. I remember this had come up in previous discussions, but I don't know if we had heard tonight. I may have missed it. Under the current plan, does this represent a savings relative to the temporary banner holding process each year? So although it's $50,000, is that it's less money that we're spending each year?
Yes. So the operating costs that we currently have are we are utilizing 2 forestry department staff and 2 bucket trucks. So it is a cost on overtime to have those two staff members there. They do need to arrive early before any of the race starts and stay the entire duration of the day. So it's a full day of overtime for 2 people. I don't know exactly what the cost was, possibly around $1,000 per year to be able to do this. And it is something, this would be a more permanent and we think better solution, because the trucks can be utilized for other things. So if there were ever a need for the truck to be out attending to tree work, we would need to prioritize that. It's worked out the past 2 years, but this just gives us a way to continue the program.
Okay. I'm not sure if I had followed the savings calculation there, but I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
And Commissioner Banks, we've only been doing this for 2 years, the banner?
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Noel, then President Albright.
So I just want to follow up on 2 points. And I'm a huge fan of Parks, Recs, and Arts and Culture. So I don't usually vote against these types of initiatives, but I think what Commissioner Banks said is it's 2 people for $1,000 plus the cost of the banner. And assuming if you put those poles up, you still need to get someone out there to switch out that banner and get a truck out there. So without getting into the weeds on this, I think I'm not appreciating the whether or not there's a cost savings versus investment. I go back to Counselor Gentile's point of, is there a better use of $50,000? The second point I just want to make is this is, I believe, the second time this has been in front of us, maybe the third. And Counselor Baker, the third time. We've talked a lot about this marathon money. And the fact of the matter is, we don't actually tie the cost of the marathon to the money. We spend money for police and DPW, and then we get the marathon money in and it goes into general operating. And that's a huge oversimplification, but we don't tie the marathon cost to marathon expenses. So I have a hard time saying like, oh, well, you know, they gave us this money and so let's just spend it on a banner, because it doesn't begin to touch our police and DPW overtime for that day. So I think, again, I go back to I just go back to, is a $50,000, is a banner a good use of $50,000? And looking at the stuff we've had to cut this year, I'm not on board for that with this year's budget.
President Albright, then Councillor Gentile.
So I just want to add that celebrating and showing pride in Newton, which is something that we often don't do, or rather don't often do, is a good thing. It's a good thing to advertise Newton events, and that we're proud of Newton, and that we can celebrate together. And especially at an event like the marathon, where, you know, thousands of people from all over the world come through. And it has value. It has value for us as a community. So it's not that it doesn't have value. So I think we should celebrate that. Thank you.
Councillor Gentile and Councillor Baker.
Sorry to belabor the point. First of all, marathon money used to be used primarily for playground improvements. And I mean, I don't know how much of that is still true, but that was an important source. If there were typically 2 or 4 schools that were identified on a rolling schedule, and money went into the playgrounds. That is something that makes a lot of sense to me. But I'm confused. I thought that the banners were staying up for, you know, they could stay up for 6 weeks at a time. So I don't understand. Are we saying that with the marathon, it goes up on marathon morning and then comes down marathon night? Or is it up for an extended period of time?
Commissioner, you want to explain?
So I think I guess the way I see it is some of the value of having the permanent installation location is that we can utilize it more often throughout the year. So currently what we're doing is we are just for the day of the marathon during the race able to display it. This would allow us to have it out leading up to the race. We're thinking, you know, trialing that for 6 weeks or so while people are training, keeping it up during the race and bringing it down after. Same for city events. So we'd have an opportunity to advertise leading up to and including through when the event happens. And that could happen periodically throughout the year. We also have the side banners, which we have recently incorporated into our public art initiative. So we would also add those banners on as part of the project. To clarify, I do think, I think Perry gave us some information that the overtime expenses for the marathon were paid for by the BAA. So I do think probably our department didn't have to have the expense of the one day that was covered by the race. But our department does regularly put up the banners. You know, we do some city hall banners. We could also do this banner. So that would be done on regular time, on straight time. And would be very low cost, and the banners to make are also very low cost, and we would keep them and reuse them as, you know, as they last and look good and are able to be put out.
Well, I'm glad to hear that if we paid overtime that it was reimbursed, because again, I don't understand why a week ahead of time during regular work hours, we couldn't put the banner up and then take it down a week later, or as many weeks as you want to without paying people overtime. So, whether it's, you know, you can put something up for 6 weeks or 5 weeks or 4 weeks. I mean, you can do it now. You've been doing it. So I don't see, I don't.
So the only difference is that we have the 2 bucket trucks to get the banner high enough during the race. 2 bucket trucks are on site and the banner gets tied between them. So that's why we had overtime costs, just to put it out during the race. That's
right.
the only overtime cost.
All right, so that's the part that I was missing, so that you actually hang the banner on the bucket trucks.
Yes.
Okay, well, all right, so that at least explains that. All right, thanks for clarifying.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
Mr. Yeo, did you want to add something?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Counselor Gentile, yes, I think another portion of these marathon funds are being used for playground work, right, Commissioner? We're
Yes, thank you.
using a chunk over at the
90,000
at the
was
Williams
for the
School.
playgrounds. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and so this, we are, because that was my recollection is, we did use over the years, marathon money at playgrounds. The money doesn't go as nearly as far as it used to. So, Maureen, do you have anything to add on that? Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, not to belabor this point, but actually Councilor Gentile is correct. We take the money from the marathon each year as a general fund revenue in the following year. It used to go, we used to identify at least 2 playgrounds a year and set aside $12,500. As time went on under the Warren administration, we realized $12,500 did not even buy a swing in a playground. And so that was pointless. And so what we did instead was put that $150,000 line item in our budgets for playground equipment, which has lasted now for years that we've been putting that in. So we no longer use the marathon money specifically for playgrounds. We do use it as a general fund revenue, and then all of the departments incur their overtime costs, and they are not credited for them. That's part of our budgeting process. It now comes in as a general fund revenue in the following year. The reason we have this money is because of the fact that we had the half marathon in October when we were coming out of COVID. So we end up having 2 payments from the BAA that particular year. We used our one, as we always do, as a general fund revenue, and the second payment was just sitting there. And so that's why this money is here. So it's not that it would go toward not covering any particular year's marathon funds. It's, we got this money a couple of years ago. We obviously absorbed whatever costs we needed to that particular year. And hence that's where this particular money has come from.
Ms. Lemieux, what's the annual BAA reimbursement?
It's about 147,000, and I think it's going up a bit next year. You have already appropriated 90,000 of what was in this original docket item, and I'm sure Commissioner Banks could tell you what we did with that 90,000. I personally cannot remember, but you've already appropriated 90 of it, and this was the other 50,000 that was remaining.
Commissioner, do you recall where the first 90,000 was allocated?
So the 90,000 has not been expended yet. We are holding a portion of it. We've applied for a grant for the Williams School playground to have some accessibility improvements. So we will have some funds to be able to supplement and cover some of that. And then we have started working on design and planning for the Memorial Playground. And we'll be working with the neighborhood there to do a playground replacement. So that it will be a portion of what's needed. A new playground, just to give everybody a sense of the cost, full replacement of a playground with the surfacing is about 300,000. So we're often, supplementing from different finance requests to be able to do these.
Okay, so the 90,000 is earmarked for Williams, but we haven't taken action on that yet.
A portion for Williams and some for Memorial.
Okay. Councilor Baker, then Oliver.
You may just quickly, I want to be clear that, and I think colleagues take a look at the banner policy. The basic point is to avoid clutter, visual clutter in the city. And I think it's important that the commissioners indicated this is going to be a limited period of time. The banner policy talks about a maximum of 6 weeks, and I would encourage to do this somewhat sparingly for around events, but not have it be in effect a permanent installation, because I think that undercuts its value. So, but that's not a part of the appropriation, but I just want to indicate that's one of the assumptions that's built into my willingness to support it, because I think that leaving it up all the time would be a mistake.
And that does align with what we're thinking to trial out for several of the events. I would also say that I think we would probably take down, if we had the small side banners up as part of the public art, we could remove those and put the street banner up for the temporary period, and then put the side banners back up. I'm sure you've seen those around. They kind of just are in line with the pole. And right now it's called Create Newton is the public art installation.
I think those are consistent with the banners.
Celebrate Newton. Sorry.
Thanks. I'm done.
Counselor Oliver, then Kalis.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Be super quick here. I didn't see in the packet here any breakdown of the 50 grand. Is it combination of labor, electrifying the poles themselves?
It does include the full installation. And so I'm working with Isaac from our DPW department, and he does have an actual quote that this will cover the full amount. We had to do some design work to get all of the schematics and load repair. So we did fund those through our department to get ready for tonight. But it will cover the full installation.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody on the call here who could kind of speak to, like, I see a lot of light poles around the city. Is each one of those a $25,000 endeavor? Because that would add up pretty quickly, wouldn't it? I don't know if there's anyone here who can speak to that. And I'm not being tongue in cheek with that. I am kind of serious.
I think I could put you in touch with Isaac. Probably would be the best person.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think he's been leading the initiative. I think they're mostly replacements of the older style poles, but I'm sure they must have some new installations as well.
Great, thank you. And Madam Chair, I'm happy to move this when we're ready, unless that is the intent of Mr. or Councilor Kalis. Thank you.
Counselor Kalis.
I'm going to align myself with the frequently connected Noel and Gentile team. I just, the 50,000 this year doesn't make a lot of sense to me. This should have come to us, I think, as an opportunity. Like, you could build this into a sponsorship very easily. You could do it over multiple years even, where you have where a portion of sponsorship money is going to this. So it's just not something that we have to be spending on right now. So I'm not going to vote for it. And I guess I'd make a motion to decline.
Okay, so Counselor Oliver, I typically consider somebody saying they're ready to move it when needed as a motion. So let me defer to you.
Sure, I'm happy to offer up a motion to decline.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny in the Finance Committee. Miss Commissioner Banks and team, I have to say, I'm struggling with this one too. I am a big fan of public art. I'm a huge fan of Miss Gannon and her team and all of the things that they take on. Thinking about playgrounds and playground maintenance and how far $50,000 can go is feeling tough for me right now. I mean, in your minds, obviously you put this forward, so you believe in it. Can you say another couple sentences about the trade-offs of spending $50,000 on the banner versus playgrounds and other types of needs that this money could go to?
Well, I mean, I don't think I can deny that, you know, there's different choices that could be made. And, you know, I'm supportive of all the things that our department needs to do. I, you know, would be happy to come and advocate for all of them. You know, I think it was a good mix. So we did previously put the 90,000 toward the playgrounds, working on 2 playgrounds, accessibility at Williams and Memorial Playground at Oak Hill Park. Those are really the next 2 in line. And our department is also going to be doing a Forte Park installation with some previous playground operations money that we have. So I feel like we're in a good space as far as the playground projects we have. One project we're about ready to install, another one we're just starting the design and community input work. So, we'll have some time in there to work through the projects. But I also think that arts and culture is just so important. I think that it's part of the mission of our department to try to do these things to bring community together. I look at what came out of the enjoyment from not only the racers but our community kind of celebrating, and I think it's just an opportunity where we have tens of thousands of people coming through Newton. And they're seeing us, and I love being able to put something out there to celebrate them, the hard work that they're putting in, and to just show that our community is really behind the marathon as well. So I am supportive of both. I don't know that I can choose. These things come up all the time, though. Do I pick the pool or the lake? It's just part of the job. I try to support all of it. And I do see it as a critical mission, the arts and culture piece. And I fully understand that, the comments here tonight are not that that's not appreciated and valued in the community. It's just decisions have to be made. But, I do value the request and I'm putting the proposal forward, really wanting to be able to do this for the community.
I can totally appreciate that. I think what I'm wrestling with is we've been able to put the banner up with the bucket trucks. I understand the bucket trucks are not the best solution, but for 2 years running, we've been able to have this banner and the enjoyment and the thousands of people seeing it and taking photos of it. And I just don't know in my mind if being able to keep it up for 6 weeks leading up to it adds to that for me, and that's really what I'm thinking about right now. President Albright, you were pretty compelling before. Maybe you can convince me. I don't know.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if I can convince anybody, but sometimes, of course, we have a million needs in this city. The schools, the playgrounds, the parks. I mean, there's the roads, the sidewalks. There's no end to what we could spend money on if we had an additional $50,000. Sometimes you just have to invest in yourself as a city and say, this is Newton and let's celebrate it. And this gives us an opportunity, not just for the marathon, but for other events to celebrate Newton and advertise ourselves as a community. So I totally empathize with everything you guys are saying, that, my God, $50,000, there's so many places we could spend that money. But now this is an investment in ourselves as a community, that we're showing our pride. And we almost never do that, never. So that's just my take on it.
Okay, thank you. It seems like I opened a can of worms at 7:57, sort of losing track of my own time with another meeting at 8 o'clock. So Councilors Humphrey, Ryan, and Greenberg, if you could be really quick, let's vote.
I'll be quick. I was leaning toward abstaining, but after hearing that, I will also add a motion over on the programs and services side for denial as well.
I already moved approval.
Whatever, fine. Then I'll vote no on both. I don't care at this point. I'm getting sick of this appeals to patriotism type stuff, this school pep. I'd like to invest in our city too. I'd like to make actual investments into actual things, not $50,000 for Instagram moments. And I can't believe anyway, I'm going to leave it there, but it's just counterproductive argumentation here that's making people get more upset, not persuaded. Thank you.
Councilor Ryan, then Greenberg.
Yeah, I'll make this brief. I'm going to totally disagree with my colleague, Councilor Humphrey, who I usually agree with. But yeah, I'm a big marathon supporter. I was a runner when I was young. Heartbreak Hill is known worldwide. Once in a while, we can celebrate our city and our pride. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Councilor Greenberg.
Oh, thank you. I can't beat what Councilor Ryan just said. This is an opportunity for Newton to celebrate itself, as Councilor Albright said, and great PR and marketing for our city. So I will be voting in favor.
Okay, well done, everybody, in 2 minutes.
Councilor Grossman, can I do the programs and services?
Go for it.
All right, and I will note that I think it's helpful to have a beginning and end time for our committee meeting, so I will be scheduling the next programs and services meeting for about 17 minutes long. Councilor Albright, President Albright has moved approval of the item in programs and services. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye
No.
or nay? Nay.
Those opposed, please say no.
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 Great job, great job. So that's Noel and Humphrey. Abstentions?
Abstaining.
Right, abstain. So I believe that passes in programs and services.
Okay, in finance, we had a motion to deny from Councillor Oliver. All those in favor of denial, please say aye.
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 Those opposed to denial, I guess say aye. Okay, and any abstentions? Okay, we have universal denial in finance. I'll admit, I don't know how many of us there are right now. I think 7.
Yes, that's correct.
You'll
Okay.
have inconsistent reports and have to be resolved in a second poll.
I have a feeling this is headed for second call anyway. So we will work it out there. And it is 8:01 exactly.
Thank you for all your time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Let's
everyone.
adjourn.
Programs and services, we are adjourned.
And
Thank you.
finance, I will see you over in our joint meeting with public facilities for another few hours of fun. See you shortly.